Hey everyone, CW Music here. I am CWD, and this is going to be a music review of this new Anderson East album, Encore. Anderson East is a singer-songwriter, really raspy and really bluesy vocalist from Nashville, and this is his latest full-length album, his third, I'm pretty sure. Can't say I've been that familiar with what Anderson East has done. I first heard about him when he did a set at Shaky Knees last year, but I never caught his set. But from what I understand, he is more of the soulful, bluesy, rootsy kind of music that's reminiscent of artists like Van Morrison. When you do put this album on, you get an idea of how good of a vocalist he is, how soulful and raspy his voice is. It's that good old blue-eyed soul kind of music that is reminiscent of its come up with artists back in the late 60s and early 70s with bands like Creedence Clearwater Revival. One consistent thing about this album I can definitely say is top notch and worth looking into would be his voice. He's a very excellent singer, one that revitalizes that old school rasp that is not as often promoted as it used to be. Even if, apart from dating Miranda Lambert, country artist Miranda Lambert, Anderson East is still relatively low profile at the moment. Apart from also collaborating with country artist Chris Stapleton with this album. So I got curious about this album. I just wanted to know exactly what kind of music Anderson East makes, and now I've heard this several times, I definitely get the relative hype behind this album and Anderson East as a whole, and I can definitely say that he's an artist that you should pay attention to if you do like your bluesy soul music that has kind of a rootsy vibe to it, even if I don't really love this album. The album itself is 11 tracks in length, it's 41 minutes, so pretty standard, not really gonna overstay its welcome or anything. It comes in, does what it does, and leaves. You basically do get an idea of what the album is going to sound like when you do hear the track King for a Day. The production on this album is pretty good. The horns have a lot of voice to them. I do like the crispiness of the drums here. Anderson East's voice is without a doubt the main focus of the project. It's pretty much consistent with how I feel about the production as a whole on this record. There's not really anything I can say is bad about it. Everything is well implemented and has its own voice and pretty balanced. My main issue though is more so within the songwriting. None of the first half is bad. I'm not going to say any of the first half is bad, but it doesn't get interesting until after the 5th track. The track King for a Day, I do like the lyrical sentiment, but there's this one little line on the second verse where he accidentally calls his girlfriend a whore. Love doesn't come easy and it sure ain't cheap. I'd spend all my money to the last dime to have just 1 minute of your time. Phrasing, man, phrasing. Add to that, King for a Day does sound like a lot of like what Chris Stapleton would do, and I like Chris Stapleton, so I should know this, and the pacing and the sort of flow and everything. Yeah, this sounds like a Chris Stapleton song. A lot of my issues with the album more so lies in with just how weakly fleshed out the lyrics are for the most part. Not a whole lot to do with the execution of the instrumentation, and of course nothing to do with his voice. Tracks like This Too Shall Last and Sorry You're Sick don't really compel me all that much when listening to it. I do like the somberness of the song If You Keep Leaving Me, but the lyrics don't really add much to the song. It's more so just about, well, if you keep leaving me, I'm just gonna keep liking you a lot, so why you just keep doing it? It's no point. A little obsessive, and there's not really that much compelling or persuasive about his argument. Sorry You're Sick is pretty much about, yeah, I'm sorry you're not feeling well, what can I get you at the local liquor store to make you feel better? And the track House is a Building, it's a nice sentiment and all, but I don't feel like that the metaphor of a house being a building but a home being a feeling was that well put together. I don't really harshly criticize Anderson East for not being a top-notch lyricist, but I do feel like that this is one little avenue that he needs to explore when he's making music in the future. So after the track If You Keep Leaving Me, the album gets particularly good and definitely saves the album from just being okay or mediocre. Like the track Girlfriend. God, I love the oomph of these horns on this track. They're so bombastic and accented. Plus I love like how sensual Anderson East get. Pretty much about, you gotta watch out for Anderson East, man. He's gonna come and snatch away your girlfriend. She's a little squirrel and he's just a hawk gonna swoop in. Plus I love how erratic he kind of gets on the hook. I think I'm in love, I think I'm in love, I think I'm in love with your girlfriend. Plus I do love the sheer rasp and passion on the song Surrender, as well as the fast-paced nature of the instrumental. And the track All in My Mind is beautiful. I'm actually kind of surprised that this isn't ending up on the 50 Shades of Grey soundtrack that's coming out. I mean, I despise the 50 Shades of Grey soundtrack in general, but this song is a better fit for what that kind of nature is, especially with the imagery that he's using. She can wear a t-shirt to a wedding gown to my bed. Ooh. Plus again, a really passionate chorus and passionate vocals all across the track. And the strings are definitely dynamic and have a lot of presence on the track. The track Without You is definitely emotional and heartfelt. Pretty much without you, there's no me. It's a really sentiment track, even if it's a little cliche. Definitely more on the slow burner side with this instrumental, and it works. The track Somebody Pick Up My Pieces ends the whole rootsy, upfront, and directness of the whole album on a good note. Even if it's not the last track, I do definitely like how this whole instrumental motif that the album had going for it ends with this track. The closing track, Cabinet Door, is pretty interesting and kind of confusing in a way, because the whole album, he pretty much spends it lusting after a woman and kind of talking about love and being horny, at least on a subliminal level. And this track, Cabinet Door, being about the introspection of a spouse that you just lost after like 50 years of marriage, and how this protagonist misses him, how this protagonist is getting by without him and all that. I can only assume that he's writing at the perspective of his mother or something like that, because any other interpretation doesn't make a whole lot of sense, but it's heartfelt and I do like the pacing. The piano chords on this track are definitely somber. So overall, there's not really a whole lot to complain about this album apart from potholes in the songwriting, especially in the first half of the album. And Anderson East, not really that great of a lyricist at this point of his career, but there's definitely room for him to improve. Anderson East definitely has me intrigued with what he's going to be doing throughout the remainder of his career, and I'm definitely going to be interested when he drops a new album. If you're into soul music, if you're into blues music, if you like artists like Chris Stapleton, Van Morrison, Creedence Clearwater Revival, this is definitely an album that you should definitely look into. If you're into that more rootsy rock kind of music, if you're into that Heartland kind of rock, if you're into a more down-to-earth kind of sound, definitely look into this album. This album is a plus 1.5 out of plus 3. Even if the first half of this album was just okay in my opinion, the second half definitely wins me over as a listener. I just wish that the whole album was just as consistent as the second half was, but that's about it. If you give this album a listen, what you think of it? Did you like this album? Did you dislike this album? What was your reason for that? And what you consider listening to and reviewing next? CW Music here, signing off.